Need to let off some steam, and it'd do you good to get out of that dusty-ass shack. We're in this together, aren't we? Maybe a beer or 5 is all we need for a breakthrough. To start asking ourselves the right questions. For instance, what the is the difference between Magenta and Fuchsia anyway? Greetings all. I'm Bearded Dante, and I'm here to explain the answer and themes related to the FF06B5 mystery. And I'll do that by showing you that you had the answer the whole time. And that reality, it's not a story. As much as we end up telling ourselves that. Humans learn from other humans by stories. It's in our nature, and so much so that we end up thinking them real. But they're not. This lesson and the assumptions that are in it are almost where our failings lie. Let's set the stage so you know where we are, and state right here and now that I'm not going to do a ton of videos about everyone's collective theories about this wonderful cyberpunk mystery. We'll start by taking the approach that most people have a basic understanding of the collective theories of Cyberpunk 2077, and we will touch on the important points of each assumption, and how it changes our understanding of the mysteries of the game. Now, firstly, many people have noted that the color FF06B5 is magenta, and thus this is called the Magenta Mystery. That's actually our first mistake that began this long walk down the wrong path that Polyhistor and Tyromanta emulates. When Polyhistor said, "I almost laugh when I think of all the time wasted on those sad, conjured-up theories of mine. I felt genuine relief when I purged my previous notes. The gibberish of a self-proclaimed genius turned fool." So, let's do that. I mean, what is the difference between magenta and fuchsia anyway? Many things. For one, it managed to obscure the word fuchsia from the fan base. Fuchsia is most definitely the color described, and two things are very interesting about it. While it does seem a weird color, in the mid to late 1980s, it was popular in the neon colors part of the society. Almost everyone wore some for some reason. It was almost a visual representation of the pop culture of the time, the bubblegum music. And for two, it's a flower. The popular plant is common enough, and many are exactly this color. There are over 100 different species of fuchsia. It is interesting that for a plant pollinated by birds, it is mentioned in a city notoriously birdless. However, I think perhaps the hint here may be for whom the flower is named. Leonard Fuchs wrote over 50 books. Most are too erudite to mean anything to us, but there are some that stand out. The Codex Fuchs, for example, is a 9-volume set consisting of 1,529 colored plates. It was published in 1536, and together with others, he also published an edited edition of the complete works of Galen. That was published in 1538. De Historia is also Fuchs' other major work, a large book about plants and their uses as medicines. This first appeared in 1542. But lastly, in 1538, he published a tabula occlorum morbus compendus. This is a large single-sheet table that listed 64 known diseases of the eye. It was the first table specifically dedicated to, Fuchs means fox. Ophthalmology.
Interestingly enough.
Providing the Greek names of diseases, brief Latin descriptions, and references to classical medical authors such as Celsius and Avicenna. Isn't it odd, so very odd, that he works with colors and the eye, considering he was mostly into botany? It seems, until you note his love of Aelius Galenus. Galen was a Roman and Greek physician, surgeon, and philosopher. He was considered to be one of the most accomplished of all medical researchers of antiquity. Galen influenced the development of various scientific disciplines, including anatomy, physiology, pathology, pharmacology, neurology, as well as philosophy and logic. Galen's understanding of anatomy and medicine was principally influenced by the contemporary theory of the four humors: black bile, yellow bile, blood, and phlegm. It is interesting those colors are also the main Cyberpunk logo and network construction within the game. Even more interesting is Galen's work on the soul, and specifically the functions within the body that the soul as a whole contributed to. Now, these theories about the soul also influenced the theory of pneuma, which he used to explain how the soul operated within its assigned organs, or how those organs in turn interacted together. Interestingly, he argued that each part of the body functioned indicated by the role of an intelligent creator. Even just a cursory review of the information presented seems to say that the word fuchsia is more important than we first thought. More importantly, for the purposes of this tale, the color is somewhat a symbol of the bubblegum-type pop culture, kind of a natural offshoot of the normal culture, as we mentioned before, in the mid-1980s. This was right when Mike Pondsmith was creating the tabletop version of Cyberpunk. Importantly also, with all the references to souls, heart, and music in the game, clearly many things link up on these themes, inside and outside of the game world. I realized while I was sitting here talking that more than anything, this whole paragraph at the beginning of this is itself a hint, even more than the question, what is the difference between magenta and fuchsia? Well, FF06B5. If you are reading the second sentence, we're in this together, aren't we? Maybe a beer or five is all we need for a breakthrough. Start asking ourselves the right questions. A beer or five, B5. Very clearly, we're in this together. Friends? Friends. I guess you have a six-pack if there's 6 beer. The sentence itself is made to conjure up that image. There's a reason for it, because this is a really important hint. The Cherry Blossom Market. Now, this is the cultural and commercial center of Japantown in Westbrook, while the broader Japantown area includes Jig Street and the docks. The market itself is defined by its colorful glass roof and giant holographic statue. Many of the important quests on the nature of the world are linked to events specifically there. Many of these are very important, and it links you to the past of Johnny and the heart and soul of music and the nature of what matters in art, or what art even means. Let's take a look at Dream On. It occurs as a side job, one commissioned by the BD artiste, Julie Alvarez. After V investigates the Paralis penthouse and chases a mysterious surveillance van with old equipment, I find that weird, to a Maelstrom hideout, Elizabeth requests a private meeting away from her husband, Jefferson. Now, during this meeting, Elizabeth confesses that she has known about the strange occurrences in their home and the changes in Jefferson's personality. She begs V not to tell Jefferson the truth about their brainwashing, fearing for their lives. Now, the significance of the sunglasses was not unknown. She wears large, dark, round sunglasses during the meeting, which seems to indicate an emphasis on the eyes or being blinded. Now, perhaps maybe because they will reveal a color. Who knows? She's seated in a small ramen booth in the Cherry Blossom Market area of Japantown with V, and then from there, when you're done the conversation, you proceed to Reconciliation Park in the city center to meet Jefferson for the final confrontation of the quest. This is where you should first encounter Mr. Blue Eyes. Incidentally, the Paralysis apartment also has some interesting moments, such as the giant telescreens like in 1984, that could read your thoughts somehow and watch the viewers. Also, Johnny remarks that when you go blank, like at the cube, or just before you see Mr. Blue Eyes, it was like being on acid and kinda good. Which is a reference to perhaps They Live from 1988 and the Hoffman lenses, related to, of course, Albert Hoffman, the discoverer of LSD. It is like a signal being interrupted or hijacked, but the emphasis on the seeing beyond and the mind control are not missed, especially since the Cherry Blossom Market is also the place where you'll find many wearing things on their eyes and expressing words of enlightenment. In this area, you can find such people as a monk preaching on the modern life of Night City, perhaps how to be more enlightened within it. You will find the two monks that you saved earlier in the quest, losing my religion, and also nearby, the Zen Master. Most importantly overlooked, however, is that all of the enlightened characters that speak have glasses or visors over their eyes, implying that vision and a link to the screens you see, perhaps loading. Many of them are curved, perhaps not unlike those you see when you pass out at 4 a.m. The Fuchsia eye relationship with Kuroshi optics, the fuchsia color, one even called Oracle, could be a simple and direct answer, and of course impossible if one calls it magenta. Now, some have noticed there are rings, specifically the Ouroboros rings. They have JG in them. I believe that refers to Carl Jung. That is why they are wearing rings. Each is an archetype clearly in the games, except one, the Great Mother, who is hidden. You do, however, get to see a video, which was released with the game, but everyone seemed to ignore her. In Jungian psychology, the Ouroboros is an archetype of the primordial state of consciousness, the dawn of the ego before it separates from the unconscious. His student, Eric Newman, details this in The Origins and History of Consciousness, explaining how the Ouroboros represents the start and end of the psychic journey. These characters are in reference to those who have been affected by enlightened knowledge, perhaps infected by heavenly knowledge, specifically knowledge from beyond the hidden parts of the internet, the hidden parts of the world, or perhaps in the 10th circle. The quest Nocturne OP55N1 refers to a classical piano piece by the Polish composer Frédéric Chopin, specifically the Nocturne in F minor. It is the song Hanako Arasaka is playing on the piano when you enter the Embers restaurant to meet her. But looking at the composer, to Frédéric Chopin, the Nocturne in F minor was a deeply personal work composed during a period of significant physical and emotional decline. In that time, Chopin's letters were filled with references to death and a retreat inward. This piece captures that mood, moving from a somber and melancholic opening to a final ray of hope when the key shifts from F minor to F major. The use of Claude Debussy's Clair de Lune in the paralysis apartment on an automated piano is a chilling symbol of the complete lack of autonomy the paralysis face. In fact, the irony of Debussy's own philosophy, believing music should be a thorough and extended portrayal of human feelings, and casting it in a rigid mold, presents the most blasphemous work of an art turned into a machine. The human touch is removed. Now, the lyrics of 4 a.m. by Grimes seem to be directions. Aphrodite and Venus are the morning stars. Do you see them in the early morning at 4 a.m.? Aphrodite, I wrote your constellation into the sky. Now, while Aphrodite or Venus is a common mythological figure in the context of the game, the visual clue is the coordinates to find the mattress. You're going to get sick, and you don't know when. Now, when the player travels to this specific mattress in the desert, after waiting there, often until 4 or 5 a.m., V experiences a relic glitch and begins to cough, passing out, literally getting sick, and apparently stays there for so long they are covered in dirt. The lyrics, however, cover up the fact that the singer, Grimes, is not depicted. In the video, blue comes from outside a port beyond the skies, comes down to Earth atop the Arasaka building. This blue light spreads like a web, resetting the world's parameter. She has blue eyes and a primitive skirt. She is Lilith, the Moon Mother. The moon, of course, moves through the skies and is always full. Another hint that the world isn't real. But she is coming down to speak to the Wolf Father, Mr. Blue Eyes, who is maintaining the world for her. Or with her. Reed knows it's bad if you hand over control to the Black Wall. And Johnny, being a soul, is needing to deal with Alt. Perhaps she needs to deal with him. Delamain, of course, is required. He has to make certain you survive your escape from Arasaka and Atom Smasher. His name, meaning delete the mainframe, does not get lost on me. Those 3 words are a reset code. The reset is literally Control, Alt, Delete. Or how we used to reset computers in the old days, by hitting these 3 buttons. That cannot be a coincidence. It seems thematically that there is a song that needs more soul in it to continually reset the world with new parameters to achieve this goal. Perhaps even the targets are wise to this. Perhaps those are ring bearers too. I have protected the realm of man and shadow, but today they are protected by our children, whose name is Patricide. In the age of his failure, he became lost in the forest. Lilith has concealed the 10th circle from the ancestors' eyes. I think perhaps the ancestors are actually advanced AI or people from beyond the Black Wall. Avatars, perhaps? Hidden behind the 10th circle. The Wolf Father is one in charge of modifying the leaders of Night City without anyone being aware, with ancient equipment? Night City, perhaps, is a simulation. V and Johnny are bait, which will give Alt the reason to come out. The Black Wall, Alt-C, and Delamain are reset, as they are part of the simulation. Alt is the mark. We need to be there to convince her to attack Mikoshi, or perhaps the Crystal Palace. This will allow them to figure out a way to break into it in the real world. Everyone in Night City is in a simulation. Some are engrams, and at least 3 seem to be AI. Arasaka, knowing of this, on the inside, implies that others are being let in, perhaps through a window. It is said that Lilith has given part of her soul to the world to do this for us? Like in the Grimes video at 4 a.m., she spreads a new code and restarts the world after reunited with the Wolf Father and exchanging information. The Wolf Father has been lost in the proverbial forest of Night City. Perhaps then Lilith is a digital copy of the Moon Mother, as Blue Eyes is a copy of the Wolf Father. And the back door or window that opens at 4 a.m. is where others, perhaps other engrams, are let in the back door? Artists? Seers? Perhaps those who motivate V and Johnny. Life in NC is just a loop of data. Lilith is akin to Mother Nature, another great mother archetype. Like out in the desert by the mattress where others can enter. Perhaps the Project Oracle codes given to Arasaka might be the runtime instructions that allow Arasaka to subvert the plans of those attacking them in this world. They seem to know that if they rummage through the minds inside Arasaka here, then they could suffer in the real world. Our world, beyond the 10th circle. It seems, in fact, Carrie or Lizzie Wizzy or Judy all lead you to something inspiring. Are they placed in the world to inspire V? To somehow remind them of the muse in music? And as wonderful as these characters are, they seem to not be us, but yet also seem to intuit that something is not right with the world, and it needs changing. Though some might know more about that than others. It does seem that Arasaka has a plan to somehow get information about this to the real world. To warn of the attack? To get information that could help them? We will continue in part 2 after Phantom Liberty. So aptly named. Thank you very much for listening.
There's an arrow. And there's the flamingo.